Hey guys, we are excited that you are turning in to the very first Victory Men's interview. My name is Brian Source, and I'm joined by Rich Rafferty. And our goal with this is to interview other men and to give them a voice as to how God has impacted their life so they can impact you guys too. Today, we have a special guest that is going to talk about their experience with the Victory Men's Hike. They're also going to discuss their healing journey through chronic illness and his I'm really excited about this current entrepreneurship endeavors. So if you guys haven't heard about the Victory Men's Hike, there's a perfect opportunity to learn more about it. On February 15th at Victory Family Church is the interest meeting. So if you guys are in the area, you're local, sign up, and it's at 9 a.m. at Victory Family Church on the 15th. I'd like to have Rich introduce today's guest, so take it away.
Well said, Brian. Jake, you've been in my life forever, man. For those who are listening and don't know, Jake's my cousin. And the main reason that I wanted to have him on this is because I know you have a killer hike testimony, but there's so many other things about you that I really respect and appreciate, specifically what you have going on right now with your entrepreneurship journey and functional health stuff that you're working with, and even just your history with the AI companies you work with and tech sales and all the success that you had already, even just in the last few years since you graduated college. But honestly, the biggest thing is the journey that you've gone on with your own personal health and how you've overcome so much adversity, even just in the last 5 years, but in total, since you were diagnosed with Lyme's disease. I think a really great place to kick this off would be just you kind of telling your story about how you overcame all of those challenges and the role that God played in that process, as well as the role that the hike played more recently.
Yeah, thank you, Rich, for the introduction. Yeah, so most recently, like you said, I just built a platform to help people with chronic illness find the right functional medicine doctors. And so that is actually a mission for me that I've known and I've had for a long time. And I've been able to take that step and go full time on it right now. And so I feel so aligned and I'm really blessed by the Lord to be able to carry on the mission that he gave me. And it all stemmed from back whenever I was young. I think I was about 12 years old and I was walking around on a trip in New York City with my family. It was a mission trip and we were walking through the city and I was getting this extremely bad hip pain and I couldn't walk. I was limping around New York City, 12 years old, like I have no idea what's going on. So flash forward, I go to a rheumatologist and they're like, oh, you have rheumatoid arthritis, juvenile arthritis. And so here, take this pill and go on your way. It'll make you feel better. And so I did that for a while and things felt better in the beginning. And then as I kept down that road, I noticed, okay, I'm starting to not feel that great again. Like there's something wrong here. And so I went into this medical monopoly, this jumping from doctor to doctor, couldn't find a doctor that was able to help me. And finally, after probably about 7 doctors, I found one in the functional medicine space that was able to help me. And he used functional medicine. He knew how to deal with really complex chronic illness. And he had actually healed himself from Lyme disease. And so I knew like, this is the guy I need to be with. And once I started seeing him, I started to notice improvements. And it just showed the power of how much a good functional medicine doctor can really help you. And so down that road, I remember just dealing with a lot of issues. Like there was this one point where I couldn't really walk. I was like bedridden for about like, at that moment, I just knew I needed some sort of change in my life. And so I started to really dedicate myself to the Lord more and more. Um, and I really got in the word, prayed with him daily, started to really prioritize that. And that led up to me wanting to get baptized um, at Victory Church. And this was back in October of 2024, I believe. And ever since then, I had rededicated myself to the Lord. And actually, Brian, shout out Brian, he gave me, or he baptized me. And that was a really special moment to have that happen with him after he had led our group, our small group for Wild at Heart. But shortly after the baptism, I actually got a test back from my doctor. And leading up to this, like I said, I've been in the word, really focused on the Lord and made him my sole priority. I got a test back that said my autoimmune reaction from the Lyme disease was no longer happening, right? And that is something that doesn't happen too often from what I'm hearing from doctors. It was truly a miracle, and I 100% dedicate that all to Jesus Christ, like putting him first and just knowing that he was my firm foundation and support that really helped my nervous system just completely commit to him, and he can work miracles. It's amazing to see this. And so that's, the journey now has been spreading that message to the world, giving people with chronic illness a tool to find the right doctors and to find healing. And to be honest, this whole journey started from the hike. Like I in the hike, I came in with an intention to get closer to the Lord and to figure out if I should move to Austin, Texas to take this AI tech sales job with this top AI company, or stay back in Pittsburgh and continue my life there with my family, my friends, keep things the same. And I didn't hear the Lord telling me to stay. And so I assumed, okay, I'm at peace with this. I'm going to go. I knew this would be the perfect place, Austin, Texas, for me to start my business and get a head start. And the Lord blessed it. Like I found so many great Christian friends down here. I was able to share my testimony, um, about 30 believers. And we now run a men's group at our house. I've had countless people share their wounds with me, which is a concept that on the hike we went deep into, and I learned that all on the hike. And just so many things going well with the business, my godly girlfriend who prays for me every day, and an amazing acquisition that happened through the tech company that really showed me that the Lord blessed this jump to Austin for me, and now he's setting me up to go full time and help people for his glory to overcome chronic illness.
That's incredible, man. Thank you for sharing all that. It's such an amazing story. I
Mhm.
love it. Every time I hear it, I just get more fired up. It's awesome, man. I really love. There was
Yeah.
pieces of that I didn't even know. I've never heard some of that before. So thank you for sharing all that. There was a few questions that jumped up while you were speaking. You mentioned
Yeah.
how the hike was such an impactful part of this, and specifically how you did the small group with me and Brian, and then were baptized. I'm kind of curious, just hearing from your perspective, what was the lead up to the hike like for you? What originally kind of brought the hike onto your radar? What made you want to say yes to it? And what was that process like for you?
Yeah. So to be honest, just hearing it from you, Richard, you had talked about your experience and how much it impacted your life, and the fact that you were now jumping in to lead it. I knew, and like anything that you were going to be a part of was going to be awesome, first of all. And I would say, in terms of the group, the Wild at Heart group that you both led, that was the first glimpse that I ever got of addressing internal wounds from my past that were holding me back from my faith in the Lord, and were holding me back in my life. And that group was such a success for me. I was able to share things that I had never shared before, things that were deep down in me that were causing issues, that were causing patterns in my life. And that were it was causing problems. And so being able to jump in, address those, and learn how we can let these things go, these wounds, these weeds in our system from past traumas, and giving those to the Lord and taking off our masks that we're hiding behind, that was something that really stuck with me. And I started to see insane breakthroughs. And even on the hike, I was able to share some pretty deep stuff that I didn't even remember, wounds from my past, and to be set free by those by through sharing with other men. It really helped me take the next step in my life. And I think back to your question, I kind of went off there, but leading up to the hike, I remember in the back of my mind, there was the devil didn't want me going on this hike. He was planting thoughts in my head like, Jake, I don't know if you can carry a backpack for that long. I don't know if you can, walk without your knee getting sore. All right, you're not going to have your phone. You're in the middle of trying to find a new job and like making a big life decision. Like, why would you do that? Why not just put all your time into thinking about what your next step is? And what I realized is the hike was exactly what I needed. I was able to really see what mattered in life, and it wasn't any of this stuff from the world. It wasn't my job, or it wasn't making money, or my next career step. Like, all of that is nothing. Like, the Lord, I found peace in the Lord, and I realized the only thing that matters is glorifying the Lord and then bringing other people closer to him, setting other people free. And that just, it was such a mental shift of perspective for me. And I knew after the hike that I could do anything that I put my mind to because the Lord was by my side. And that was what really was the launching pad for me to go off, move to Texas away from my family, launch my first business ever, and to put myself out there in front of thousands of people talking about the Lord and my vulnerable story of my chronic illness, which was always something that I was self-conscious about. And that wouldn't have ever happened without the hike. And it was truly the rite of passage for me as a man to go and step up and do what I want to do in life and fulfill my mission from the Lord. And he's really blessed it in every area of my life, and it's truly amazing.
Yeah, that Wild at Heart small group that we did, Rich, Jake, that you were in, that to me, I was like, I don't know if I'm ever gonna be able to replicate this small group experience. I mean, it was an incredible group. Every guy was tuned in, everybody was getting stuff out of it, they were sharing, they were opening up, and so I really don't know if I'm ever gonna be able to facilitate if we'll ever be able to facilitate a small group like that again, but it was definitely, top 3 small group, if not probably the best small group I've ever been a part of, but, and then to have the hike, after it, I mean, that was just the cherry on top, so
Amen, brother. Yeah, I would say, Jake, you kind of hit on a few things leading up to the hike that were causing doubt in your mind. And I think that's a pretty common theme that we've seen for all hikers. And you even mentioned that for this call today, there were things that popped up that a normal day would never have happened, but the devil knew that we were going to be making an impact today and he had other plans for you, right? So you were able to overcome those leading up to the hike and for this call. You mentioned that you had some doubts about your specific physical abilities to make it through. I'm curious if there's any moments on the hike that stood out to you specifically about being the most physically or mentally challenging points of the hike. Are there any moments that stuck out to you that you were able to, really lock into your memory and be like a core thing that you can draw on that you made it through?
Yeah, that's a great question, Rich. The first thing that came to mind for me, it really wasn't physical. I felt that I was able to keep up physically, and the Lord really blessed me with that ability. I think there was a few physical things I'll mention, but the first I'm gonna mention is more of a mental shift and a mental event, but being able to identify some really deep traumas that I had never shared before, and to share that with an entire group of men around a campfire, and to be the first one to share was something that I didn't think that I could do. It seemed very daunting and scary for me. But when I did it, I felt a release. I felt like I just felt a weight off my shoulder. And all the men that I was with were so quick to come support me, come by my side. Everybody that was around the campfire at dinner that night came around me, put hands on me, and prayed for me to be set free from these past traumas. And it really made all the impact in the world for me in my life. I think another more physical event was we were actually coming into the group campsite, and there was this huge storm coming down. Everybody was drenched. We were setting up tents. There was water everywhere. And, there was actually like tents up in the group section where water would actually come and pour down in like this big, almost like big buckets of water on people. And it was a tough time. People were getting wet. It wasn't comfortable at all, but we came together and we worshiped together. We had an amazing word from Stu and one of the pastors that I can't remember his name, Pastor Jim. That guy is a legend. He's the man. He anointed me. And, anyways, being able to get through these uncomfortable scenarios when it was wet, we were tired, we had just hiked all day, and being able to come together as men and still keep our eyes on the Lord even through these tough challenges. It's a metaphor for life, right? Like we're always going to have something. There's always an issue, right? There's always a problem that we're dealing with in the back of our mind, but problems are a sign of life, right? It's a mental shift that you have to make. And then you also realize that the Lord is with you through all of these challenges and he's forming you, right? he does everything for our good, right? Any bad scenario, it's all for our good and it's all to shape us into the person that the Lord wants us to become. And so that was a big mindset shift for me after that night on the hike.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, man. I asked that question because that has been a huge thing for me. I had a very similar mindset shift when I first went on my first hike. I was totally unprepared. My sleeping bag got soaking wet. We were downpoured on. And to this day, when I'm going through a hard time, I think about that night when I was shivering in my sleeping bag and was just absolutely gritting my teeth, getting through the next few days of the hike and just struggling. But at the same time, was able to, just like you, open up and had a group of men around me that were there to support me and help me through it. And I can draw on that memory now and think, well, I made it through that. Any night I'm having a bad sleep or just going through something, I think about that and I'm like, well, at least I'm warm in my bed and not shivering in the middle of the woods. But the thing that you hit on that I want to follow up on was kind of the group of men that you went on it with. You mentioned the campfires, you mentioned Jim and Stu kind of pouring into you. I'm curious, just knowing about your story being your cousin, kind of the transition from being in the hike and being in the Wild at Heart small group to then going to Austin and starting brand new, not knowing anyone really, and being able to find a group of godly men like you have. I'm curious, kind of, if the impact of the hike, how that transitioned into you going to Austin and finding the godly group of men that you have now. Was there a specific thing you were looking for? What was your strategy like? Because I know that's a really tough thing that people are struggling with at our age, is going from, let's say, like a college age into a young professional age. That's a really big thing that people struggle with, is finding godly men in their life. So just, now that you know the impact they can have from the hike, what was your strategy like going to Austin and starting all over to find godly men that you can have as your support system?
Yeah, so after the hike, moving to Austin and after experiencing everything from the hike and how important it is to have godly men by your side, I knew that I had to get in the church. That was the first things first. Let's find a church. And so I started asking all my friends that I knew down in Austin, like, what are some good churches I can go to? I want to get plugged in with a community. And because I was new, I was able to basically form my friend group from scratch, which is very special. And Rich, we've talked about this before. I immediately started going to these community groups at our church, and I already knew a few people. Funny enough, a guy that I worked with who was also my onboarding buddy at my AI company. He was also in the community group and at the same church as me. And so funny enough, we started this relationship and within a few months became the best of friends over our bond of loving the Lord and wanting to be godly men and striving to get better as men. And right now we actually live in this house together, me and him. He's my roommate, and all from knowing what type of guys I wanted to be around from the hike experience and just from being friends with you two, right? Having a great example of men that I want to be like myself, but that I can look for in others. I would also add just, yeah, like seeking out other Christian groups, people from social media that I've chatted with who are, spreading their faith to the world over social media. I was able to get plugged in with some Christian influencers down here in Austin, since it is a pretty big influencer crowd, a lot of fitness influencers. And so I've been grateful to be plugged in with a lot of Christian entrepreneurs who are on the same path as me down here in Austin. But yeah, and then from there, starting to lead groups myself, right? So we have a men's accountability night at our house every Sunday night. And I'm telling you, if I wasn't in the Wild at Heart group with Brian and Rich, if I didn't go on that hike, I wouldn't know how to lead that group. I wouldn't have stuck my neck out to make that happen and try and replicate that at my own church here. And so having that experience just meant the world for me. And I'll tell you one other story that actually really touched my heart. And sometimes basically at my AI company, we had an exit. God blessed me very well in that time, but I ended up getting let go from the company, right? And it was probably, I think, about like 6 months after I had started and moved down to Austin and everything, and I was like, "All right, why am I down here?" And I just kept believing that, all right, the Lord sent me down to Austin for some reason. It wasn't a stupid job, right? It was for another reason, and I started to realize, like, okay, what happened? I got into a men's group. I shared my testimony, and it was the first time I shared my testimony. It was in our men's group at our community group, and I thought there was gonna be maybe 15 guys that show up, and I would know most of them. But this is the night that everybody showed up, all the new people. We had more people than we had ever had, and there was about 30 guys out there, and I got to share my full life story, all the wounds, everything that was deep down inside of me with them. And then I started having people coming up to me and sharing their wounds and relating and resonating. And even my roommate who had some deep wounds himself, he was able to share those with me the first time he has ever told anybody this stuff. And he was set free by being able to do that. And so even that is such a big reason. Like, even that, if that's the reason I'm down here in Austin, that's fine by me. Right. And so it all stemmed from the hike. It all stemmed from Wild at Heart, and truly amazing what this group can do.
Yeah. I mean, I think, that the brotherhood component that you mentioned there, I think that's what we're trying to do with this Victory Men's. One of the initiatives is to show other godly men, show guys what a godly man looks like. Because online, there's so many different places where you can go and see what a godly man does not look like, unfortunately. And I won't mention any names, but there's you could follow any, of these names that we're all familiar with, and they're largely an example of like the guys you don't want to hang around with. So that's what we're trying to do with this Victory Men's with the social page is to, hey, this is what a godly man looks like. And this is, probably sometimes it'll be, hey, this is what a godly man doesn't look like. So, and then on top of that, give guys like yourself a voice to tell your story, to give your testimony and to relate to what you've been through with chronic illness and the hike. But yeah, there's a lot of voices online that will lead us down a rabbit hole. And like you hear about kind of people just like you talk to them and you know them, and then you see them 2 years later and they've almost become like a completely different person. And they're just consumed with some of these ideas that the world is this narrative that the world is pushing. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to define, hey, this is what a godly man looks like, and then on top of that, here's how to connect with other godly men. So your experience on the hike, allowed you to find that community, to find those guys that look like some of the other guys that were the leaders or the other guys on the trail. So that's the brotherhood component. Again, the hike's about three things: adventure, brotherhood, and transformation. I've heard it said that transformation can't take place outside of community. That's exactly where the devil wants us. He wants us to be isolated. He wants us to be alone. So for you to go and just have that the backing of the brotherhood, in Pittsburgh, that you can go out and, hey, who are some guys that, I can plug into in Austin. So I love that, what you learned and, the wisdom that God has given you is, transferred over to Austin, which, man, I've heard Austin is like the growth rate of Austin is just insane right now. Like we have a client here at the agency that they're in Austin and their business is just crazy. So is that what you're seeing too? That just Austin is just like exploding?
Austin is exploding. Yeah, Austin is really exploding. I think, um, they're seeing the biggest growth rate in people moving there out of any other city in the world or in the country. And businesses, startups are thriving here. If you're starting a business, this is the place to be. And yeah, it's truly amazing. So many young people that are very eager and wanting to better themselves. And most of them are pretty nice too, which is cool. They have that Southern flair and that Texas touch.
Jake, we kind of hit on it a little bit, but I'd love to hear more about specifically what the problem is that you're trying to solve through the business that you're launching. So we really talked about you kind of finding your voice, and I know you're posting a lot of social media videos specifically talking about the power of healing that God can provide. And I know a lot of that relates to the business that you're in the process of launching and getting going in Austin. So maybe just take a second and kind of tell us a little bit about how God is playing a role in the launching of your business and what the message is that you're trying to get out and what you're solving through your business.
Totally. Yeah, so the Lord has played a huge role in my business. I think of him as the chief visionary officer. And so everything I do each day is dedicated to him. And, I have to get out of bed and say that every morning, like, all right, Lord, this day is dedicated to you and do with me as you want. And I take prayer walks and I just try to hear from him and pray that he would guide me in the right direction with my decisions. And ultimately, he led me to taking this full-time jump to build Functional Match. And it is a platform to help people with chronic illness find the right functional medicine doctors, doctors that are personalized and patient referred. And I just noticed from my experience that it took me forever to find a good doctor. It took me about 7 doctors. I had to do a bunch of research myself to figure out, all right, what's a good doctor? What do I need to do to heal my body? And I spent probably like, I don't know, $100,000 on treatments bouncing from doctor to doctor. And
Wow.
I don't want anybody else to have to go through that. And so I was like, why can't there just be a platform with all the functional medicine doctors that are within this certain credibility range, that have testimonials that are legit from patients? And that way we can almost come up with a scoring guide for, like, all right, here's a functional medicine doctor based on their testimonials. Here's their score. And oh, this is what they do and what they specialize in. So you go ahead and put your symptoms in as a patient. We have a doctor database of all these doctors, their credibility, their testimonials, what they do, and we pair you together. It's like a matchmaking service, but for patients and doctors. And functional medicine specifically was what helped me heal the most. And that is what helps a lot of people with these complex chronic illnesses heal, right? It's root cause medicine. It's a root cause approach, not a band aid fix type of treatment where you're just taking pills and symptoms are going away, but you're hurting your body in the process. So I created a platform for that, and we've had 50 patients come through, and we have a lot of doctors and practitioners who are very interested. I had a networking event last night, and a lot of doctors were coming up to me. So it's definitely needed. So I'm very excited to help more people with chronic illness. And I wanted to leave a little seed, is that I post a lot on social media about my faith journey and how the Lord helped me heal, along with functional medicine and how important it is. But I was messaging with a guy from Boston who he was dealing with Lyme disease really, really bad. He was broken down. He couldn't move. He was living in a tent in Boston. He didn't have money. He needed treatment, but he didn't have the money for it. And I remember him basically messaging me being like, I don't think I can do this anymore, man. Like, I don't want to keep fighting. I don't have the strength anymore. And I mean, I responded with Bible verses and praying for the guy. But my goal in this is to one day be able to go and fund people's treatments for functional medicine and helping people who are having chronic illness but don't have the money to pay out of pocket for it, because oftentimes insurance doesn't take functional medicine treatments. And so that's been my new guiding light ever since that conversation.
That's incredible, man. I love it. That was a beautifully said gist of your business and the mission that you have. I absolutely love seeing your videos every time they pop up. Jake guided, man. I love it, dude. I love seeing them. I love watching the videos and just hearing you speak from the heart and talk about things that helped you and trying to help other people. I mean, what else is business really about, right? Just trying to, you know, make an impact in the world. And I love what you said about how you wake up every day and just want to hear from God about what you can do to improve the world. I think if everybody did that, the world would be a significantly better place. And oftentimes, making an impact really starts at the individual level, right? So you're a prime example of that. You are making a difference individually that'll impact your family, which is me. And then together, hopefully, we can impact the community and really drive this thing home for people through platforms like Victory Men or our individual platforms, whatever it may be, your business, my business, the church as a whole. Hopefully we can all collectively come together and really drive what you're saying through a megaphone and just get it out there to the world that so desperately needs it.
Yeah. I, Jake, I personally kind of have some experience with what you've dealt with, not myself personally, but a very close family member dealt with some sort of chronic illness. So I can relate to like you know that something is wrong, but you don't know exactly what it is. And you go doctor to doctor and they tell you, hey, slap a band-aid on it or try this cream or try this specific medicine. And honestly, like, it becomes so frustrating. So I really love what you're doing. My family member had they known that at the time your business was available, we would have definitely went and checked it out. But I think the one thing that helped, which I saw on your Instagram, red light is one of the things that, in this particular instance with my family member, red light was a big help to them. Because that to me, it's like, there's inflammation, right? That's what that is, geared towards treating. And the one post I saw on your Instagram, I absolutely related to and I loved was really kind of my question for you is, you said that once you found a doctor that helped you treat root causes rather than symptoms, that changed. So I guess tell me like a little bit about that. And then I kind of see like there's a spiritual correlation there. For example, like when we have a certain behavior, it's not necessarily that's the symptom, right? But how I've become to understand it, behaviors is like it's not about behavior modification. There's something deeper. There's something deeper within my heart that needs to be addressed. So, for this analogy, I've heard it called a trailhead. And so you take if you see that behavior, that's your trailhead. And that trailhead leads you down if you're brave enough and have enough courage to go down that trailhead and explore those issues, those wounds. One, Jesus will go along with you, you know, down that trailhead. And two, your brothers and your community will as well. But I'm just really curious to hear, a little bit about that root causes and like how that has come to impact your spiritual walk too, and how because it really kind of circles back right to the Wild at Heart curriculum. It's not about just behavior modification, addressing wounds. It's about root causes within the heart from childhood, etc. So that was really my big question for you.
Yeah, Brian, that's a great question. I think there's really a correlation between root cause root causes of illness and root causes of bad patterns and behavior and and wounds that we keep deep inside of us. And so the way I think about it with illness is that there's usually three main ways that illness can come about, the root causes. And it's one through environmental stressors, things like toxins, heavy metals, mold, things like that. And then back to things, the next thing would be bugs, right? Things like Lyme, infections inside your body, Epstein Barr. And then the third one, which actually goes into both camps of both health and your spiritual walk, is emotional wounds, right? And so these things deep down inside of you that you've been covering up for years, maybe something traumatic happened back in your household when you were a kid. And not identifying those and not sharing them or bringing them to light means that it stays in darkness. And that is exactly like you said, Brian, that is where the enemy, the devil wants you to be in this shameful hiding space. And you can actually see this stuff not only affect you spiritually, but physically. Like I've even me identifying some of these wounds from my past and talking about them and sharing has set me free from certain issues with my health, right? Like these emotional wounds cause health issues. And a lot of people with chronic illness that haven't addressed these wounds, they're dealing with these chronic illness. And it's so correlated. I would say that yes, like spiritually being able to get to the root cause and dig in, like what are the top 10? I went down and I wrote down what are the top 10 wounds that I've ever experienced in my life. And out here in Austin, we did something very similar to what we did at the Wild at Heart group. And on the hike is we shared these wounds with our brothers. And the Lord says, like, there's two ways to be set free is one through believing in Jesus and that he died on the cross to save our sins, and two, confessing and talking about our wounds, talking about our sins and sharing them with our brothers, and that lets us set free and put light to these traumas that were holding us back. And I think if more men in the world would catch on to that and do that, they would be able to grow into their true selves. They wouldn't be held back by these consistent patterns that are hurting them in their lives, right? They would be able to be the men that the Lord created them to be. And if we all come together and we're all the men that the Lord created us to be, the impact that we can make in this generation, in this culture, the fight that we can have to go on the offensive, especially on the screen, right? Where a lot of the battle, like Rich, we talk about this a lot of the battle is on the screen. How can we push back that by creating more men behind us to come and fight this battle for us, right? And so I think it's amazing what you guys are doing with the hike, what we went through with the Wild at Heart group and this podcast in general. It's going to change people's lives.
Amen, brother. Yeah, I absolutely love that question you asked, Brian. That was fantastic. The correlation between those two, and Jake, what you said about identifying all 10 of your wounds and sharing that with people, that's been super transformational for me. I remember somebody saying to me that they didn't have any wounds, and I kind of just laughed at them because it's like everybody's
Yep.
got
It's
wounds,
not
man.
true.
And really,
Yep.
the biggest thing is if you feel like you don't have any wounds, like, that just means you haven't been to battle, right? Like you're not stepping up to the plate in being a warrior for God's army and putting on the armor of God and stepping out into the advance, right? We're going to take wounds in a battle. It's bound to happen, right? So there's going to be pushback. And I just absolutely loved what you said about getting out in front of it, identifying the wounds you've experienced, healing from them, and just keep it going, keep moving forward and spreading the message further and further to be able to impact more people. It's incredible what you're doing, man. I love to see it. I absolutely love to see it. Every time I talk to you, I get fired up. That's why I knew we had to get you on here and just record the thing so, other people could be fired up as well, man. It's beautiful.
Yeah, the hike definitely is stoking the fire at Victory Men's. It definitely is. I mean, that's where, I said a couple weeks ago at the men's breakfast, that the men's ministry at Victory is on fire, and it's guys like and your testimony, Rich, you too, get stepping out and representing, Victory Men well. And so that's where I'm really excited for you, Jake, for your business, for where it's going to go. And I mean, it's a clear problem. And on top of that, you have an incredible story. And the one thing that I know being in marketing is you got to have a why. And your why behind what you're doing is so strong. That's Simon Sinek, his book, Start with Why. And, I think that is really going to take you very far. I love what you're doing. I'm so happy that you're connected down in Austin. And I was telling Rachel the other day, like, if there was another place that I'd like to live in Texas, it might be Austin, just because, it's growing, it's fast paced. So, but I've never been to Austin, but maybe if I do come to Austin, I will definitely hit you up for sure.
Please do. Yeah. And if you move down here, it would be amazing. I'd have another mentor down here and we'd have a good time for sure.
Yeah, to be clear, I'm not moving anytime soon. Like I love Pittsburgh. I absolutely love being here. So like it would be hard for me to leave Pittsburgh for sure. But yeah, just to be clear, so that like if anybody sees this afterward, like, wait, Brian's moving to Austin? So I'm not moving, but I would definitely come and check you out, man, for sure.
Appreciate that. And I appreciate the kind words. And yeah, you have a place to stay anytime you come down. And Um, yeah, I really appreciate everything that you guys are doing here with this platform. It's going to make a huge impact, and both of you guys have made a huge impact in my life. And I know I've told Rich a lot, but Brian, like just with the baptism and you leading us in the Victory Men's small group with the Wild at Heart group, it was a big turn in my life that made a huge impact, and now I'm able to give back to my community through what we did, and it's really just a ripple effect. So thank you, both of you.
Yeah, I mean that's like what Rich was saying, like it's, hey, you get transformed. It starts with the individual, right? And then from there, you're able to impact your family. You're from there, you're able to impact your local community. And, from there, it just kind of trickles all throughout the region, hopefully. And imagine, a million guys, all throughout the United States who are just absolutely on fire for Christ, who are really demonstrating what a godly man looks like. And, imagine the impact that could have on a generation. And honestly, guys, it's on us. We've been, given that mandate, the Malachi verse, to take the baton and carry it with strength and with honor and integrity, and to be the next generation to represent Christ. And then, we pass that on to the next generation, to preserve. That's where, we're called the salt of the earth. So, just really love the current season that, the church is in with, the acceleration mandate and, what's ahead. So I know Victory Men's, is a great part of it. And, so it's a great to do ministry alongside you guys. I mean, just right now, I just feel like it's an amazing time to be in men's ministry as a whole. But I really appreciate you, man, taking the time to talk with us and to pour your heart out and to be a blessing to other guys. But it's been great hearing your story, man. So I'm also looking forward to catching up some more in this real soon.
Yeah,
Thanks,
guys,
Jake.
thank you so much for having me. Yeah, of course, this is amazing. Let's catch up soon. And if anybody is on the edge and thinking, oh, should I go on this Victory Men's hike? I don't know. I have all these things I have to do. Just go do it. You have to do it. It's going to make your life X. You're going to improve in every area. Your wife's going to thank you. Your family's going to thank you. And it's going to transform you and make your life so much better.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. So again, the interest meeting, if you guys are not signed up yet, it's February 15th at Victory Family Church. You could sign up all the way up until probably the day before, but just do it. Come check it out. Even if you're kind of on the fence, there'll be guys there that can explain the trip to you and make you feel comfortable going into it and kind of in what you're in for. But yeah, so I'm really happy. I'm really excited that we're going to kick off this interview series. And Jake, you were the first guest, and tune back in the future for future interviews for Victory Men. So God bless you guys and have a great day.